Welcome everybody, Dr. Nathan Thompson here, Clinic Director of Exemplify Health Center, author of Transformation 28, 28 Days to Achieving Your Best Health Ever. Today we're going to be talking about how to overcome pain and inflammation naturally without drugs and without medication. We're going to give you the 3-step protocol on what you can start doing today to help eliminate pain naturally and start doing the things that you love to do. Now listen, who is this for? This is for anyone who experiences chronic pain, whether they have chronic neck pain, chronic back pain, sciatica, radiating pain into the arms, lower back pain, chronic headaches, even fibromyalgia. This talk that I'm going to be going over is going to benefit you if you do these 3 things. Now, a lot of the information I'm going to be going over with you today is going to be coming from my upcoming book, Transformation 28. It's going to be available in October 2018. Make sure that you check that out when it becomes available. I'm going to show you in the book how to become an efficient fat burner, how to start implementing anti-inflammatory nutrition, how to lose weight, and how you should be exercising, and how you can do this over 28 days to dramatically improve your health. Stay tuned for more information. Now, on to the good stuff. So, if you look at this picture here, the first thing that should come out at you is that this is not the way that you fix problems. And especially if you're trying to hold up a building, shrink wrap is not the way to go. The reason why I show you this picture is because a lot of times with our health, this is what we're doing. We're applying a temporary fix to something that should be fixed permanently. And we're applying things not only might work just in the short term, but they're not getting to the cause. Not only that, if you continue to do it, it can be downright dangerous. But we do this every single day when it comes to pain relief, when it comes to managing diabetes, when it comes to managing heart disease, when it comes to managing pretty much anything in the United States, is that we're masking problems rather than getting to causes and start addressing solutions. Now, chronic pain in the United States is a big, big issue. And in fact, 1 in 3 people in the United States are actually going to be considered disabled before their retirement. I mean, how many times do you see people who can't wait for retirement, but 1/3 of those people are already going to be considered disabled before they even make it to that time. Now, arthritis is the #1 cause of disability in the United States, and what is associated with arthritis, which is chronic pain. Now, #2 is actually mood disorders like anxiety and depression, and we can definitely go over that in another time, but let's talk about the #1 cause of disability, arthritis. In the United States, 55% of Americans take prescription medications. So right now, over half of our country is taking at least 1 medication. The average number of medication in the United States that people are taking is actually 4. Now, we know that pain is a big, big problem. And just in 2013, there was over 251 million opioid pain medication prescriptions that were prescribed. In just 15 years, that number increased by 5 times. And in 2016, there were over 42,000 deaths from overdoses from opioid-based pain medication. So we know that these opioid-based pain medications have a huge risk for dependence, for becoming addicted to these medications. And in fact, the number of people that are being prescribed this has absolutely exploded, and so has the number of people that are addicted to the medications, and unfortunately, the number of people who have actually died from these overdose. So when you look at it though, even though we're taking all of these medications for chronic pain, we're seeing more and more people that are on these medications, which means that chronic pain hasn't improved 1 bit over the last 15 years. And unfortunately, hundreds of thousands of people have died in their pursuit of overcoming chronic pain. Now, it has actually gotten so bad that we've actually developed in the United States, drug companies have developed medications for the side effect of pain medications. And one of the biggest side effects with opioid-based pain medications is actually constipation. Not to worry though, because now the drug companies actually have gone so far is to prescribe a special drug that helps with opioid-based pain medication, constipation. So there have been over 1 million prescriptions for just this one medication to help alleviate constipation because someone is taking opioid medications just since 2015. That's how bad it's actually gotten. Now, we know that some of these opioid pain medications, we know just how bad it is, but this is not a new problem. Listen, we had the same problem 15 years ago with a different type of pain medication. These were called your COX-2 inhibitors. These were things like Bextra, Vioxx, and Celebrex, and these drugs came onto the market in order to prevent things like gastrointestinal bleeding that was a common symptom when people were taking over-the-counter pain medication. Things like aspirin and Tylenol, Aleve, and things like that. So the drug companies came out with these new COX-2 inhibitors. And the problem with this is that they said it's not going to cause gastrointestinal bleeding, but the problem was that it was causing a 4 times increase in heart attacks and strokes. Just Vioxx alone, for example, from 1999 to 2004, they actually estimated that 139,000 people died due to a heart attack and stroke that was caused by just this one drug called Vioxx. Now, this was just not Vioxx as well. This was actually Celebrex, and this was actually Bextra. These were some of the alternative drugs made by different drug companies, and they saw the same exact correlation between taking these drugs and people dying of an increase in heart attacks and strokes. Now, listen. The reason why this is so disheartening, why this is so disconcerting, is because the drug companies actually knew that this would cause tens of thousands of deaths. And in fact, in 1999, when these drugs were coming out, based off their initial research, the drug companies actually found that this would in fact cause a significant increase in heart attacks and strokes. And they said not to worry because this is going to be such a blockbuster drug that we'll make more money by selling the drug, and we're actually going to put some of the profits away for all of the lawsuits that are going to happen as a result of doctors prescribing these medications. So while these drug companies made billions and billions of dollars from these drugs, they're actually able to make way more in profits than the lawsuits that they had to pay out on because of these increase in heart attacks and strokes. And in fact, if you actually see here, the FDA actually pulled Vioxx from the market because of this increase in heart attacks and strokes. But in 2001, they actually already knew that patients on Vioxx, this pain relieving drug called a COX-2 inhibitor, they said they were 4 times more likely to have a heart attack. They already knew, they still prescribed it, and hundreds of thousands of people died. It was okay for mom or dad or for your grandmother or grandpa to die for the sake of profits. Now listen, this is not just the prescription pain medications. These are also over-the-counter medications. When we talk about NSAIDs, or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, we're talking about things that you can buy at the drugstore for pain. Things like acetaminophen or Tylenol, things like ibuprofen or Advil, things like naproxen, also known as Aleve, or Tylenol or aspirin. All of these drugs fall under the category of NSAIDs. Now here's what the research actually shows, because the side effects from these drugs are certainly not benign. There's tons of side effects with these. In fact, they even say that even these over-the-counter NSAIDs can actually cause an increase in heart attacks and an increase in strokes. Listen, the #1 cause of death in the United States is actually heart disease and from heart attacks. So you have to wonder if taking these pain medications are actually making this problem worse. Well, here's what they found. #1, daily aspirin use increases the risk of pancreatic cancer. And what they found is that when someone was taking 7 or more aspirins per week, it increased their risk of pancreatic cancer by 58%. And if they're taking 14 or more per week, it increased their risk by 86%. Now, these people had to take these medications for 20 years or longer. Number 2, pregnant women who use NSAIDs and aspirin increase their risk of miscarriage by 80%. What they found was that if a woman was taking more than just 1 per week, or they were taking them during conception, this increased the risk of miscarriage by 80%. Now, long-term use of NSAIDs cause peptic ulcers or stomach ulcers in 15% of people that are taking these medications long-term. And not only that, they have found that when someone is taking NSAIDs, it reduces bone healing, bone formation, and bone remodeling. And in fact, from this study, what they found was that if someone took pain medication after a bone fracture, they said that it significantly delayed the healing of that bone by weeks, not just by a couple of days, but by weeks. And so it was slowing down healing taking place inside of the body. Now, this is of importance, especially for women as they go into menopause, because if this is actually inhibiting the formation and the remodeling of healthy new bone, another name for this would be called osteoporosis. And we in the United States have a huge problem with osteoporosis. Now, what's interesting is a lot of people actually take that baby aspirin every single day in order to prevent a heart attack. In the Journal of American Medical Association 2014, they said, hey, there's no evidence that an aspirin a day reduce the risk of a heart attack. We are prescribing these medications not even based on research, it's only based on tradition. We have to do what is starting to make sense. We have to do what is based off of the research and not what's just based on what everyone else is doing. So these NSAIDs are certainly not benign. Now listen, it goes even further because painkillers now are actually shown to cause pain. And the Journal of Neurology in 2004 came out with a study that it absolutely shocked the medical world. They found that when someone uses daily or near daily use of painkillers for 6 months or more, it actually caused an increased likelihood for chronic migraines by 20 times, by chronic non-migraine headaches by almost 10 times, by chronic neck pain 3.5 times, and chronic low back pain 3.5 times. So if you are taking medications or painkillers for these specific conditions over 6 months, when you're not taking these painkillers, it's actually making the pain to come back even stronger. So after a while, these painkillers are actually causing the problem on which you're taking this painkiller for. I know it sounds crazy, but it's absolutely true. So here's what it is time for. It's time to start fighting, not fighting symptoms, it's actually time to start fighting the cause. You know, in the United States, we tend to chase symptoms much like the bull chases the cape. And if you think about it, if we have arthritis, we take medications for the symptoms of arthritis. If we have heart disease or high blood pressure, we take medications for high blood pressure. If we had cancer, we do chemotherapy and radiation, which is the symptom, taking care of the symptoms, not the cause of cancer. If we have depression, we're taking medications to treat the symptoms of depression and not getting to the cause. And even though we are treating the symptoms, we continue to have more and more of this every single year. And instead of being the bull that's just chasing the symptoms, we have to start finding the cause and start attacking the cause, stop fighting these symptoms. So what I'm going to talk about with you is this whole idea of what drives pain inside the body. What drives pain is known as inflammation. Now listen, pain is actually subjective. So pain can mean a lot of different things for other people. So you know, some people, they have just a little bit of inflammation and it causes massive amounts of pain. Some people have massive amounts of inflammation, they have a little bit of pain. So pain is subjective. It's based on your stress levels, how much sleep you got, it's based on your nutrition, it's based on your mood. But what is 100% real is what's behind it, and that is inflammation. And so we're going to talk about how you can lower inflammation, because we know that if you lower inflammation, you're also going to lower chronic pain. Inflammation is known as the silent killer. And if you look at inflammation, particularly chronic inflammation is different than acute inflammation. Acute inflammation is actually good. This is what happens when you cut your finger or when you have a sprained ankle and you get the swelling, you get the pain, you get the redness. Those things that happen with acute inflammation are actually good, and they help the body to heal. But what can be bad is when you have inflammation that never ends inside the body, or chronic inflammation. This is your low level, oftentimes things that you don't even notice type of inflammation that can take place inside of the body. So what you notice is that chronic inflammation drives nearly every cause of disease inside the body. Chronic inflammation is linked to cardiovascular disease, things that lead to heart attack and stroke. Chronic inflammation is linked to diabetes, specifically type 2 diabetes. Chronic inflammation is linked to things with autoimmunity, irritable bowel disease, fibromyalgia, things that are linked to rheumatoid type conditions. Chronic inflammation is actually linked to osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, and even osteoporosis, or losing bone mass. Chronic inflammation is linked to cancer. Chronic inflammation is linked to metabolic disorders, even sleep apnea, and also these neurological disorders that you're seeing explode in the United States: Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's disease, and even dementia. And the problem is that we're not treating chronic inflammation or getting to the cause of it. We're just treating the surface symptoms. So inflammation is real, and you have to start lowering inflammation inside of the body. Now listen, if you notice this, if you were going to sit on a stool, you can't sit on a one-legged stool or a two-legged stool. Yet that's what people are trying to do to get their health back. They're not addressing all three. Health comes from having each leg of the stool. You have to address the physical problems that are happening in through the body, like problems in through the spine, in through the nerve system, with structure and alignment inside of the body. You have to address the chemical. This would be addressing things like chronic inflammation that's taking place inside of the body, chronic toxicity, problems in through the gut, your hormone system in the body. And then finally, you have to address the leg of the mental, what we would know as stress, or chronic stress that's taking place inside the body. Now, we could do a whole nother webinar just on mental stress alone, but we're going to talk particularly today about the chemical and the physical. Just know this, that if you are trying to restore and regain your health naturally, you can't address just one. You have to address all three in order to be able to achieve health. So what I'm going to go over with you next is I'm going to go over with you how to overcome pain and inflammation naturally, without drugs, without medications, and how you can do this in order to achieve your best health in years, to help you overcome chronic pain so that you can start doing the things that you love that you're missing out of. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about nutrition and how you can start avoiding inflammatory foods and adding anti-inflammatory foods. We're going to talk about how to start adding anti-inflammatory and joint support supplements, and how you can start to lower that inflammation very quickly inside of the body. And also going to talk about how you need to restore motion to the body, to the physical, and restore nerve supply so that you can bring healing into that area and you can start getting things to move the way that they're supposed to. Now, anyone who has arthritis, the doctor often says, hey, you just need to take it easy. In reality, you need to do the opposite. You need to actually start moving those areas, but you need to be moving them, number one, right, and moving them when they have proper alignment. So let's talk about number one. The first thing that we want to show you is how to actually do a nutritional adjustment. Now, I'm going to talk about the 3 different macronutrients, carbs, proteins, and fats. I'm going to show you the ones that you need to avoid and the ones that you need to start adding that are going to be considered anti-inflammatory. Number 1, the things that you need to avoid as far as carbs are going to be anything that is white and processed. This is processed wheat, this is processed rice, this is also processed wheat, this is also processed sugar. So anything that is processed and white in the form of a carbohydrate is extremely, extremely inflammatory inside of the body. Listen, these things drive up insulin in the body, and high doses of insulin, or that fat storage hormone that lowers your blood sugar, brings inflammation to the arteries and inflammation to the joints. So you have to avoid anything that is white. So white bread, white rice, white pasta, and any kind of added sugar or processed sugar for that matter. Now here's the carbs that you need to start adding in large amounts. Number 1 is actually going to be greens or green leafy vegetables. Think of broccoli, think of kale, think of spinach, think of bok choy. These things are extremely anti-inflammatory. Eating these things in large amounts are going to help decrease inflammation. And not only that, but they're also going to bring tons of micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals into your body that will help with normal cell function. Another great carb to add that is anti-inflammatory are going to be berries, and blueberries are the best. Another great carb to add, and this is a fruit, this is known as the pineapple. Pineapples are extremely anti-inflammatory because they contain bromelain. And bromelain is a natural anti-inflammatory. This is why pineapple works so well. Now, if you're someone like me that struggles to get 6 to 8, even 10 to 12 servings of anti-inflammatory greens, a great way to get a large amount of greens in a short amount of time is with max greens or evaporated greens. Now, these are great because in one scoop you can actually add about 6 servings of greens that is going to bring a lot of anti-inflammatory nutrition into your body. Now, for our patients that are having a lot of issues with inflammation, we actually recommend that they're getting about 2 scoops of the anti-inflammatory greens every single day. And we find that when they do this instead of this, they tend to be a little bit more compliant because it's just a lot easier to get 2 scoops of this versus sitting for 30 minutes trying to get 10 to 12 servings of green leafy vegetable. So these are the carbs that you need to start adding. Now, what about fats? Fats are really good. And in order to overcome inflammation, you definitely need to be consuming more fats in your diet. And in fact, in my book, T28, Transformation 28, I talk about the right ratios in which you should be getting your fats, your proteins, and your carbohydrates. Your fats, for example, should be about 50% of your overall daily caloric intake. But you need to be getting the right types of fats. The fats you absolutely must avoid are things like trans fats. Now, never look at the front of the label and says contains no trans fats. The reason why is because when they say 0 trans fats on the front, there's always going to be trans fats in the product. Now, the reason why is that the government actually allows the food industry to advertise as 0 trans fat as long as it contains under 0.5 grams of trans fats per servings. Now, we thought that was going to be a great thing. The food industry, all they did is they decreased the serving size in order to get that under 0.5 grams per serving. So how do you know if something contains a trans fat? Well, if you look over here, you're going to look on the back of the label and it will either say hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated and then the oil after that. Now, the reason why trans fats are so bad, or partially hydrogenated or fully hydrogenated oils, is that they contain a massive amount, or they cause a massive amount of inflammation inside of the body, particularly to the arteries, and it settles in to the joints. Now, another inflammatory fat to start to avoid is going to be any kind of vegetable oil that you heat. So this can be corn oil, peanut oil, soybean oil, or it can be canola oil. Now, anytime you heat these oils, they turn rancid and then they become inflammatory. So instead, what we want to do is we want to start adding great healthy fats, fats that are anti-inflammatory to the body. So getting some of the fat from some of your animal sources. This would be like wild caught salmon or any kind of wild caught or Pacific caught fish. This would be your grass-fed and grass-finished beef. Free range is another great thing as far as chicken. Antibiotic-free, organic, things that you want to be looking for. Now, not only that, but nuts and seeds are great additions to add healthy fats. But you want the seeds and the nuts to be sprouted, and you want them to be raw. So you don't want them to be heated. You don't want them to be cooked. Raw is always going to be in the best form. So things like cashews, almonds, walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, those things are going to have a ton of anti-inflammatory nutrition. Now, what about cooking? So we talk about not to be cooking with some of these rancid vegetable oils like corn oil, canola oil. What you want to be cooking with instead is going to be coconut oil. Coconut oil has an extremely high smoke point so that it doesn't turn rancid, and coconut oil inside the body, especially in large amounts, can be anti-inflammatory. Now, one of the things that I also consume about 2 tablespoons a day in order to get a lot of fats into my body is called MCT oil. Now, this is the liquid form of coconut oil or palm oil. So I recommend virgin coconut MCT oil. This is going to be really good for you, and it's a great addition to things like smoothies, what I'm going to talk to you in just a second. Now, what about avocados? Avocados are another great fat that you can start adding into your daily eating routine. And then these are going to be some of the other oils that you can be cooking with. Now, you also want to avoid cooking these at high temperatures, but things like extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, macadamia nut oil, almond oil, sunflower oil. You want to look for organic, and you also want to look for either extra virgin or cold compressed. And what that means is that in order to extract the oil, it wasn't heated and it wasn't turned rancid in that process. Start adding these fats. 50% of your total caloric intake should come from these sources. This will help dramatically with inflammation. Now, what about your proteins? Well, the thing with fats and proteins is that if you're eating fats, a lot of times it's going to be coupled with protein, except in a couple of different circumstances. So again, if you're eating healthy fats, you're automatically going to be getting healthy proteins. So again, grass-fed beef, raw nuts, sprouted nuts, wild caught, Pacific caught fish, free range chicken, antibiotic free, hormone free. You want to be looking for that, especially with poultry. Free range eggs are a great source of protein. Now, a lot of people ask me about this, particularly when they're trying to lose weight or when they are working out and they want to have increase their protein intake. So great sources of anti-inflammatory and joint supporting proteins are going to be grass-fed whey protein. And what you have to look for is you have to see that it's grass-fed. You have to see that it's sweetened with stevia and not artificial sweeteners or fructose or sugar. And so you have to see that it comes from as well from concentrate. And because from concentrate is going to be in its most natural form. So those are the 3 things that you want to be looking for. Now, here's another one that I have become a huge fan of. And this is bone broth collagen. So any kind of bone broth or any kind of bone broth powder is going to contain collagen. And collagen actually helps rebuild joints. So anything that has collagen in the body, getting higher amounts of collagen is going to help provide the body with raw materials to help heal, build, and repair those tissues. So cartilage contains collagen. Bones contain collagen. Your skin, your hair, your nails all contain collagen, and a lot of times we don't consume enough collagen in our daily diet. And so I, for example, have been starting to use bone broth collagen every single day in order to help with things like my shoulders, lower back, neck. Sometimes these issues can actually become painful for me doing things like with what I do every single day, seeing patients or doing high intensity, short duration exercise. These are the proteins to add. Now, what about a supplementation plan? Now, if you're even considering supplementation, what I would actually tell you to do first is start changing your nutrition. You can add the best supplements in the world, but if your diet is off and you're eating inflammatory fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, guys, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You may get some improvement, but ultimately one of the things that you have to fix is you have to fix your nutrition, then start adding the right supplements. Now, these supplements here, these are things that I take every single day. These are anti-inflammatory, so they also not only help with the joints, but they also help with the inflammation that drives things like cancer, heart disease, or neurological based conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. Now, the first one I want to talk about is I want to talk about what's known as omega-3 fatty acids. Now, omega-3 fatty acids come from plant-based sources, and they also come from fish. You know, a lot of times people say, hey, it's fish oil. So you want to be getting your omega-3 fatty acids from plant sources, and you also want to be getting them from animal sources. And you can get a lot of them from fish. So I actually take about 3 grams of omega-3 fatty acids in the form of ALA, EPA, and DHA every single day. Now, what research shows is that for women, you need about 2 grams in order to have an anti-inflammatory effect. And for men, you need about 3 grams. So omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory. They help with joint pain, but they also help with joint mobility. Now, the next one is called Daily Defense. Now, the active ingredient in Daily Defense is curcumin, and this is actually derived from turmeric. Now, you notice that turmeric is really popular in India, for example. They put this spice on all their foods. They also historically have low levels of inflammation. The active ingredient curcumin is anti-inflammatory. So I take 1 to 2 Daily Defense every single day in order to help with inflammation even further. Now, vitamin D3. This is huge. Just a couple of months ago, they actually found that supplementing with vitamin D was shown to reduce chronic lower back pain. Most of the time when I'm testing people, is I see that their vitamin D levels are way too low. Your vitamin D levels should be between 60 and 70 nanograms per deciliter on a blood spot test. And most people, you see that their levels are in the teens or 20s. And they've actually found that when you can get your vitamin D levels up, it will decrease chronic pain inside of the body. I found people who suffer with things like fibromyalgia, chronic headaches, do really well when we start to get their vitamin D levels back up to normal. Grass-fed whey protein is great, and we actually recommend that because now you can actually combine the whey protein, the anti-inflammatory greens, the MCT oil that I talked about, and we may have a special smoothie that we recommend for people called the T28 smoothie that brings tons of anti-inflammatory nutrition into your body. It takes 1 to 2 minutes to make, and it takes about 1 to 2 minutes to actually consume. Now, what about magnesium? So magnesium, specifically liquid magnesium, and I recommend magnesium citrate, is that magnesium helps to actually relax muscle spasms and improve muscle pain. So magnesium actually helps to relax muscles. So I actually take magnesium at night right before I go to bed. Not only does it help reduce muscle spasm, but it helps with digestion, and it also helps with sleep. Now, this is what I would consider kind of like a replacement for any kind of over-the-counter pain medication. So, hey, sometimes there's just days when you hurt or you injure yourself, and one of the things that I recommend, especially for acute type pain and inflammation, is called wolbenzyme. Now, wolbenzyme contains 2 things. Number 1, it contains bromelain. Remember that? That comes from the pineapple. Except instead of eating tons of pineapple, you can get tons of pineapple in just 2 to 4 tablets of wolbenzyme that contain the bromelain. Not only that, what's really good for things like stiffness and scar tissue formation, things that happen when there's been chronic pain, are called digestive enzymes. Wolbenzyme contains digestive enzymes, and we found that when you take bromelain on an empty stomach. You allow those digestive enzymes to actually get absorbed into the bloodstream and actually start to digest some of that gritty scar tissue that prevents you from being mobile. It causes stiffness. It causes you to be hypomobile and not have normal mobility. So I recommend for this one or about 2 to 4, up to 6 to 8 if you're acute, of Benzyme daily, 1 to 2 teaspoons of the Pro Magnesium, 1 to 2 scoops of Max Greens, 1 to 2 scoops of grass-fed whey protein, 1 vitamin D3 or 5,000 IUs per day, 1 to 2 daily defense, and for the optimal you need to take about 3 to 4 per day in order to get that anti-inflammatory effect. Now, hey, if you are looking for those things and you are that person who takes action and you do it right away, one of the things that you can do is you can go to this website, exemplifyhealth.com. You can go all the way up to patients, and then you'll scroll down to nutritional supplementation, and that'll actually take you to a page that has all of these supplement resources that you can actually purchase and have it directly shipped to your house. So exemplifyhealth.com, go to patients, nutritional supplements, click on that link, and that will go to where all of those resources are at. I want to talk to you finally about that other leg that I talked to you about the structural portion, about the physical portion of that leg onto that stool that's going to create great health. I want you to imagine for a minute that you were running and you fall down on your outstretched arm and you break your wrist. And so you go to the doctor, they do x-rays, and they say, yep, it's broken and we need to cast that. So they're going to put a cast on anywhere from 6 to 8, maybe up to 12 weeks in order for that bone to start to heal. Now, I want you to think, you get to that 8-week point, they take new x-rays and they say, yep, the bone has healed together, we can take that cast off. And if you've ever had a broken bone, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Is that as soon as you get the cast off, what does that joint feel like? You probably already know this, but it feels stiff, it feels painful, and it feels weak. And if you think of how we are describing arthritis today, we describe arthritis as a painful, weak, and a stiff joint. So if you imagine if you went to another doctor immediately after getting that cast off and you didn't tell them that you had broken the bone, but you went and say, hey doc, my wrist is very stiff, it's very weak, it's very achy. The doctor's probably going to say, you have arthritis, stop doing that, stop moving it, give it rest, and take a bunch of anti-inflammatory medications. But when you think about it, when you break a bone, the first thing that you actually do is that you actually start moving it and you start strengthening it. And that's what we should actually be doing for arthritis. We shouldn't be resting it. We should actually be working on strengthening it and moving it properly. However, there's just one thing though that you have to do before you start moving it properly, is that you have to start restoring alignment to it. So listen, this goes into biostructural care. Motion is life to the body. The more you're able to move, the healthier your baby become. The more that you're able to move correctly, the healthier you become. Motion is life. So one of the things that you have to do is you have to be able to restore motion. You have to be able to restore alignment. Now listen, there are so many people who suffer with things like headaches, fibromyalgia, neck pain, back pain. And what happens is this, is the first thing that happens is that you lose alignment. So normally the spine has to be in a very specific position to move right. It's no different than a car with tires that have to be lined up. Those things have to move, or they have to be in alignment in order for them to move right. But what happens is we get in auto accidents, we sit at desks all day, we have all of these different traumas. All of those things shift the spine or shift the joint out of alignment. And then as they go out of alignment, then what happens is they start losing motion. And as they lose motion, they break down, they become inflamed, and they start hurting. And so we don't do anything in order to restore alignment and then motion back to a joint. Now think of it, if you're suffering with neck pain in through the lower part of the neck, it's much more than just neck pain. And the reason why we know this is because if this area in the lower part of the spine is actually causing pain, this is also linked to the nerve system into this area that goes into the shoulders, down the arms, and affects the function of the heart, the lungs, and even the thyroid gland. If you're having radiating pain going down into the leg or chronic lower back pain, these nerves go down into the leg, and they also affect the function of the bowels. They affect the function of the reproductive organs. They affect the hormone function in through that area. Not only that, the function of the bowels is super, super important versus your your inflammatory levels. Your bowels also are responsible for serotonin production, your happy hormone. So you can definitely see how all of these things are actually tied together. Let me give you an example of this. Let's say that you get in a car accident. Most people have been in a car accident, or your child has had a difficult birth with birth trauma, or you sit at a desk all day. Well, what we're looking at is we're looking at a side view of the neck. So this would be the person's eyes up here, this would be the teeth, this would be the back of the head. This would be looking at the neck from the side. This red line would be normal alignment. This black line is the actual alignment of this person. So can you see how off the alignment is? And when you look at this area here, you can see that this joint is actually breaking down and it's becoming arthritic. It's not in alignment. Therefore, it begins breaking down, just like the wheels, when your wheels are out of alignment on your car. Now, one of the really cool things that we do in the office is we actually analyze this through motion x-rays. This same person is trying to look down. And one of the things that you have to see is each one of these lines spreading apart. If they're spreading apart, it means this area is moving. Now you can see that this area is moving okay, but when you look here, 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 and here, there is 4 different areas that are stuck and not moving. And when they're not moving, they break down as well. When you look at this person trying to look up, we should see the front of these vertebrae and these lines start to open up. So you can see that this one opens up a little bit, this one opens up a little bit, but here, 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 and here in the lower neck, it doesn't open up at all. And now by looking at these x-rays, we can actually see why not only is a person in pain, but why they're having neurological issues inside of the body. Listen, these nerves here are the ones that go into the thyroid. They go into the arms, into the shoulders. This area goes into the heart, goes into the lungs. This area up here affects things like the ears, the sinuses, the immune system. These things here affect things like pain going into like the shoulder blades and into the upper part of the shoulders. And now when we can see how everything is moving, we can see exactly what we need to fix in order to bring normal motion and alignment back into the system. It's kind of like when your car is out of alignment. The wheels start breaking down. And listen, if your wheel looks like this, you're not going to go to your car repair shop to get new tires every 8,000 miles. You're going to fix the alignment, and then, only then, is it going to be safe and productive to even drive on those tires. And this is where chiropractic comes in, and this is why chiropractic is so successful, because we're getting to causes and not just treating symptoms. Listen, don't take it from me. This is from actual patients. And they did a study not long ago, and they looked at chiropractic utilization and the satisfaction with the people who went to a chiropractor. 71% of people were actually taking less medication. 87% said, I have a significant improvement in my overall health, not just for my condition. 92% said, you know what, I'm living a healthier lifestyle. 98% found a physical problem improvement. 99% found a decrease in physical pain, and the reason why is because they were getting to the cause. And this article comes from the Journal of Manipulative and Physiological Therapeutics, a peer-reviewed scientific journal. So listen, if you're someone who wants to take action, if you're someone who just doesn't consume information, you're someone who says, oh, I may do something, I may do one thing, but if you're someone who says, you know what, I need help with all of those 3 legs, I'm ready to do something about my health, I'm ready to take action, I am tired, of living my life in pain, I am tired of not being able to do the things I love, then here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to my website, exemplifyhealth.com, and you're going to see that there's a new patient special offer to receive a complimentary consultation. Now, what you're going to do when you go here is you're going to fill out your name, email address, phone number, and I want to know how we can help. What is going on with you? Hit that submit button. That will go to my staff, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours to see when we can schedule that consultation. So during that consultation, we'll sit down, we'll go over with you what's going on, how long this is going on, what caused this, how this is affecting your life. And if this is something that I can help with, we'll go over with you what we need to do as far as testing and possibly x-rays in order to narrow down exactly what's causing this, so that we can start getting you better and you can start living the life that you deserve. Hey, if you have a direct question, you can actually email me at drnathanthompson@drnathanThompson.net. Send me an email, ask me a question, I'll get back to you within 24 hours. Now, last thing is this, is what about exercise? Now, isn't exercise good for you? And it absolutely is, there's no question about it. It's just that some people shouldn't be exercising yet. Remember, you have to actually restore alignment, start restoring motion, and then that's when exercise becomes beneficial. We all know exercise helps relieve and prevent the problems associated with arthritis. I mean, it helps with joint stiffness, muscle weakness. It helps with, stress, depression. I mean, it helps with osteoporosis. It helps with so many things. It's just that you have to make sure that things are working right before you start adding some of my favorite exercises to restore function back to your body. That would be things like squatting, things like picking things off the floor, pressing things over your head. And you might be someone who might not be ready for that yet, but there's a couple of things that you can do in order to get in great shape that's unstressful to your joints. Things like using a rower or using a bike. So this is actually called the Rogue Echo Bike. We actually use this at my gyms that we have. This is also called a Concept 2 rower. This Concept 2 rower has very little stress on the joints, but provides a great overall metabolic blast to the body that helps you to burn fat, helps you to build muscle without causing a lot of stress and inflammation on joints. So we start to exercise once we start addressing those issues first, and once you start taking that three-legged approach to health, that's when you start living your best health within years. So guys, I hope you found this useful. I hope you found this enjoyable. Make sure that you take advantage of the supplements that we're recommending. Make sure that you're changing your nutrition and changing your diet, and make sure that you're scheduling that consultation to come in so that we can start helping you live your best health in years. This is Dr. Nathan Thompson. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.